What's up, guys?
Hey, Joe.
Hey.
Hello. So I'm gonna mess your names up quite a bit. I think before we hit record, I called you Jeroen and this. So, but I guess you corrected me, and it's Jeroen and Thijs. So welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Thank you so
Yeah,
much.
Thank you, Joey.
Joey. Actually, if people are from India, that's how my name is pronounced there, I guess. So yeah,
Yeah.
so it's Joey. And I'm like,
Uh,
it's only
and
one
what does it
person.
matter?
It doesn't
We're
matter.
so
What are
much more than
names?
me.
What are names?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're all dumb. Just make up another one. Um, well, cool. Where you guys out of?
We're calling in from Rotterdam, the Netherlands.
Fancy.
Yep. Thijs is actually from Amsterdam.
Yeah.
But he came all the way down.
To Rotterdam. The full 1 hour on a train.
It's a 1 hour trip, I believe. Yeah. Good
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. So that we could be together for this show.
Yeah, it just works a lot
Awesome.
better if you have banter to sit next to each other instead of have like the lag of this connection between you.
Yeah, that's it's definitely true. And I was actually in your neck of the woods not too long ago, but I was just passing through, so to the airport, so it doesn't really count. But otherwise it would have made sense to meet in person, but oh well, here we are.
Next time.
Yeah, for people who don't know who you are, do you want to give a quick intro?
Definitely.
You want to go first?
So I'm Thijs Nieuwdorp. I'm the lead data scientist of Xomnia and the author of Python Polars, the definitive guide.
Cool.
And I'm Jeroen Janssens. I'm also an author on Python Polars, the definitive guide. And I recently joined Posit as a developer relations engineer.
Oh, cool. Good company.
Yep.
I know. Do you know Wes over at
Worst, yeah.
Yeah.
We go way back.
Cool. That's awesome. I guess for people who don't know what Polars is, what's Polars?
Polars, yeah. You want to
begin?
yeah.
I think that it's usually the tagline I use if you're working in a data community is like, do you know pandas? It's pandas, but the new evolution of that. So it's again, it's a data frame library. It's blazingly fast. It's written in Rust, which is also a big trend these days to rewrite all kinds of tools in Rust, because it turns out that performance is in fact very much a feature. And it's got its own very, very expressive API, very ergonomic API, which makes it a lot of fun to work with. And it's been like since I found it a couple of years ago, because I work at Xomnia. That's also where the creator of Polars used to work at the time.
Yeah.
That's Richie Vink. We got into contact through our work there. And at the time, he had this small pet project called Polars, and it grew and grew and became mature enough to start using it in our code. And that's where I picked it up at one point and saw that it was very, very pleasant to work with. That's how I got in touch with that.
That's super cool, and that's a really good story too. It's not too often you get to work at the place where the library started. So
yeah, it's a lot of fun. Like I still remember that at one point I was working with Parquet files, which was just something new that was being supported with that. And I helped file some bugs that Richie just fixed and released the next day, because it was still very much his hobby project that he was just so focused on to write.
Oh, that's super cool. You mentioned something earlier about pandas, right? So I think that's well, I remember when pandas was still pretty new. It's way back in the day, and now it's I think import pandas as PD is something that is probably tattooed on quite a few data scientists' foreheads.
Muscle memory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny how PD was just ended up being like the abbreviation of it too. It could have been anything, but it happened to be that for some reason. But what's wrong with pandas, and what does Polars do better?
So let me, preface this by saying that we have a lot of respect for pandas and Wes and the pandas team.
I mean, nice enough to leave a praise quote in your book, by the way. So.
Oh yeah, no, definitely very generous, and I mean that. I think it's safe to say that without pandas, Python wouldn't have been such a popular language for data science. So kind of revolutionized that. And so pandas is what now? I don't know, 15 years old at least. That's when
And he started writing about 2008 during the Great Financial Crash, I think. So, but yeah, but it's old.
all right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I
Yeah.
started using it when it was version point or 0.4. So yeah, and it still had the panel data structure, right? A lot of people think that pandas that the name comes from the animal, but it's actually from panel
Yeah.
data. Anyway, that's now old and gone. But without pandas, there also wouldn't have been polars, right? So
Right.
pandas led the way, and Richie was able to look at it and consider lots of research being done in the database community, and just he had the opportunity to start from scratch. So um, what does polars do differently? Well, it's multi-threaded. It's implemented in Rust with Python bindings on top of it. It has a lazy execution mode, right? So that you can let the query engine optimize your query before it actually is executed. So in pandas, everything is eager. It's executed immediately. Polars also doesn't have the concept of an index. Yeah, so that's a lot of people. Well, I definitely struggled with that concept. To me, it always felt that the index was getting in the way more than it was actually being helpful. And so polars doesn't have the index, so that makes it perhaps a bit easier to reason about your code.
I think
What
the
else?
difference with pandas is mostly that the API very much works in a more imperative sense. That like you just tell which kind of data operations you want to execute, and sometimes even on which blocks in the data frame. But Polars kind of shifts that and makes it more declarative approach, which, for example, Spark has as well, where you just say, pick this column, apply these transformations, or pick this condition and pick out the rows to which it applies and apply these transformations. And you don't really have to care about where the data is exactly stored and like that kind of stuff. Just you leave it to the engine, and the engine that allows the engine to optimize a lot. So it brings a lot of advantages in performance as well, and usability. I find at least.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
That's cool. Why'd you want to write a book on polars?
why?
This
So
guy, he started with this.
Walk me
so
through
I
this
was
whole
also
story.
yeah,
I always find it interesting why people want to write a book.
oh yeah, it's a good origin story. So I was also working at Xomnia at the time, right? So the three of us, we were colleagues, and I was not assigned to any client, so I had some time to experiment, and I decided to give polars a go, and I was immediately hooked. Right, same reason as Thijs. I mean, so fast, pleasant API to work with, and I realized like, okay, this thing is gonna be big. Yeah, so I could see it was already mature enough, and Richie Vink, he was so focused on getting Polar's feature complete, making it stable. There were plenty of contributors already, and I just knew that okay, this is going to be big, and this deserves a book. So the first thing I did is I reached out to Richie and I said, hey, you should write a book about this because otherwise someone else will. And Richie was totally not interested, right? And I think for the better because Richie is an amazing, engineer. He so it's best that he focuses on the actual package. And so then I thought, okay, then well, if someone has to do this, then okay, I'll do it. But I knew I really didn't felt like it. So I written another book, Data Science at the Command Line, years ago. And I just knew I didn't want to write a book by myself anymore. I really needed someone else,
Another victim.
And that victim, turned out to be Thijs. So before I reached out to Thijs, I had a call with O'Reilly. I was going to talk to them anyway. I was like, "Hey, have you heard about this thing called polars?" And it was like, "Yeah, what is that? Yeah, we have reached, we've received 4 proposals so far. We've all rejected them, but yeah, so O'Reilly wasn't aware of it yet, but still they had received 4 proposals. So I knew, like, okay, other people definitely have this same idea, writing a book. We got to write a serious proposal. And so we did. We gathered all the statistics that we could find, uh, all the arguments why this would be a successful book, because of the package, of course. Richie had already said that he was going to write the foreword very generously, very generous of him. And so,
Did you put that part in the proposal too?
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Definitely
definitely.
helps.
That was a key selling point.
Yeah, I
That
can
the
imagine.
author of Polar is going to write it forward. Yeah. And so I reached out to Thijs. Thijs and I, we were both assigned. We were assigned to the same client, and so we were actually already working with Polar. So it all came together, and Thijs luckily said yes. And nearly 2 years later, we got ourselves a book. So we didn't really want to write a book. We really wanted to have written the book. That's I don't know, Joe, you of course, you've written a book also with a co-author. What I'm curious, what was that process like? Was it as tortuous for you as it was for us, or
I don't know. What do you mean by torturous for you guys? What maybe describe that real quick.
agonizing pain every day? No,
Like-
that's not every day.
Like geared towards the book or with each other.
No. Thijs, well, we are both a pleasure to work with, right?
That's like our
Right,
instinct, like, careful, boy.
No. I mean,
That clicked very well. I think it's mostly the hardest part for me was mostly at the end, when everything, like all the tasks that you kind of pushed forward and didn't want to make a decision on, it kind of catches up with you, and you have to finish the book. You have a deadline, so you have to go through all these tough decisions. That's, I think, the toughest part that I had to go through in this process.
yeah. So our books are, I can imagine, very different, right? We are data engineering, fundamentals of data engineering, a lot more conceptual. Ours is really about one specific thing. And then when you put the definitive guide on there, people have a certain expectation, right? Where you have to live up to. It needs to be complete.
Yeah.
So that also means that you have to write a chapter about joining 2 data frames. I mean, that's not, to me, not the most, you wrote that chapter.
It's not the most sexy content to write about.
No. So there are fewer creative choices that you can make, because we have decided, at the start, this is going to be a book about polars. It's pretty much set out for you. We had our work cut out for us. Still, in between the chapters, there's still plenty of creativity that you can pour into. I mean, we can still decide, okay, what kind of data are we going to use? Are we going to insert? What is the order in which we're going to explain things? Do we want to insert a little, joke here to make, So,
needless to say, it is so full with puns.
That's what?
It is chock full with puns. The whole book, like there's a lot of titles and a lot of that we try to turn into puns to make it a bit more airy, like a bit more light to read, instead of just having all these just like method after method, function after function, and just dry data sets. So we try to at least make some fun data sets that make you notice it while you're reading it.
Well,
yeah,
I think
but
that's
it's
part of
never
the key, though, because you have to make the writing engaging for a technical book like that.
Yeah.
That's probably one reason I've always steered clear of doing, I think, the technical manuals, because there's a couple of reasons for me, and that's just how I'm wired. You guys did a great job with this one, but it's like you're also competing with the documentation, right? So you have to. So in some ways, you have everything already laid out for you in a lot of sense, because it's like, this is actually what you need to cover. Great. And now you have to do it in your own style, in your own way, that's going to keep people, from page 1 to page, how many pages is your book? Like 503
504.
PDF? What's that?
Yeah. 504.
Yeah. So it's like, that's I can imagine that's hard, right? I know a lot of people that have written technical books like that, and I think that's the crux, because you're again, your competition is kind of like everybody has a YouTube channel who can talk about
Hmm.
polars, or a blog on it, or and the product itself, right? The documentation. So I can
Yeah,
imagine that that's actually pretty tricky, especially 500 pages worth. It's no joke
it
to write
is.
that much,
It
no matter
is.
what.
And these jokes, I mean, they're not. It's not slapstick, right? It's like if you don't get the reference, it won't hamper the reading experience. It's like, what is this obscure pop reference that they make, right? No, that's not necessary. There are little references here and there, but if you don't know about them, then it's totally fine. It's like watching Ready Player One, and you'll miss like 50% of all the references made there, but it still makes for a very enjoyable movie. Um, and yeah, so we're cut out for us. Indeed, with Data Science Command Line, at least, I could pretty much choose which chapters I wanted to write about, or
Hmm.
to write. Very different. But hey, this book needed to get written, and
Yeah.
we had a job to do. So yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned let's see. Well, yeah, my experience, I think our books are like very orthogonal, right? Where it was hard, but for other reasons, because in this case we were trying to define an entire field from first principles,
Hmm.
which nobody had done. The thing I noticed is when I was trying to look up what data, it was before the book, but I'd go online and Google what is data engineering, and you'd get back really shitty posts and articles about like data engineering is the use of Spark and Hadoop and Pig, and you're like, that's not even an explanation worth anything. It's a useless
No.
explanation that doesn't either describe the field or anything for that matter. It's useless. And I kept seeing all these articles pop up, and data engineering was often treated from a tools or technology first perspective, but nobody would explain that. Okay, so as a discipline, like, what is this, and like what's the mental framework for thinking about data engineering? So that was hard. And in fact, O'Reilly, when we first pitched it, they actually didn't want to do it. They thought it was too ambitious for two um, dorks to tackle. But ultimately, we came to, I guess, an idea of what the book would look like. But yeah, it was hard for that
It
reason,
turned
right?
out to
Because
it turned
it's
out
an open
quite
ended
well.
problem. You can attack it from any way you want.
Yep.
But how do you do it in a way that's
Another
going to keep
challenge.
people reading? It's a different type of book. It's hard. It's really hard.
I bet scoping was a big part of the challenge, uh, for you. Is
Yeah.
that right?
I mean, you're gonna have to draw on a lot of your own experiences to scope it, right? Because and so when you're covering like one of the chapters on chapter 3 in architecture, like that's, if you were to ask anybody, including yourselves, what is data architecture or what is architecture, you're probably going to get as many answers back as there are people you ask.
Yeah, it's a book in itself.
Yeah. Right. So then you're trying to define that in the context of data engineering. Like, why should you focus on architecture? Like, why does it even matter? And that's every chapter in the book. Like, and so that's what was hard, is the scoping is what you determine it to be. But but what's going to help the reader, I think, was like the main focus all along. And I'm sure you felt the same way. And this is something your editor is going to tell you, or at least your development editor, is like what's going to serve the reader and what's completely useless and you don't need to, mention. And so, but filtering is hard, as you probably found out when you were getting towards the end, and you mentioned that you're having to decide what to keep and what to cut. That's
Yeah, I think it helps a lot that you're writing about a library, which is a very concrete thing. Like there's certain aspects to it you get to describe. There's certain concepts that it's built on, and it's mostly the how you're gonna explain a very abstract concept. Like for example, like with polars, it's expressions, or in certain contexts, it helps mostly to just run along with examples and just to make some fun use
yeah,
cases that you can apply it. And I think that helps a lot with uh,
Yeah.
the scoping of things, and it's less abstract than a concept of data engineering, for example. I think that helps a lot.
What also really helped for us, is that we were using polars in our jobs.
right.
We were actually in the middle of migrating decently big code base from pandas and R all the way completely to Python and Polars.
Yeah, that thing's like a 20,000 line code base.
Yeah, it was substantial.
We just passed that tipping point of 10,000 lines where it gets rough if you still have to get into it for the first time.
Yeah, and this also gave us a lot of experience and enabled us to put in really these kind of hard-won nuggets in the book, right? That you don't necessarily find in the online documentation. Right. The online documentation is also very valuable. It serves a different purpose. And that also allowed us to make these choices. Okay, what you just said, Joe, is okay, what is going to help the reader? Because we were just one step ahead of the reader. We were just, implementing it or putting Polars into production ourselves, and we were able to, write about it, the next morning. So
that's cool.
That really helped too.
What are some things that you felt like you should have put in the book or should have removed? Or what would you have changed about the book now?
With the hindsight that we currently have.
Yeah.
Oh, I think for you it would have been this visualization chapter, huh?
The book is perfect the way it is. No, I mean, well, so there is this story about chapter 16.
The curse of chapter 16 for Jeroen.
Yeah. Data visualization. Say again?
I'm going to pull it up while you're telling me about it.
All right. Yeah. So chapter 16. At a Christmas party, Richie came up to me. Hey, Polars is going to be able to do data visualization. And I was like, are you serious? There are already like 24 data visualization packages for Python out there. We don't need another one. But no, it's going to be good. It's going to be taken care of by this other library. So it's all good. At first I was quite grumpy about it. Like, hey, we're never going to be able to finish this book because, of course, the reader expects this to be part of the book. Then later I realized, like, hey, having a couple of pretty pictures in the book is maybe not so bad, right? Because, otherwise it would have been even drier, right? So having a chapter with some beautiful data visualizations is probably a good thing. So I started writing that chapter. And I was almost done. I mean, I decided not to include just what was at the time hvplot, right? This is this meta package which uses under the hood either matplotlib or plotly or bokeh. Exactly. I also wanted to include some others like plot9. The Great Tables package is in there as well for producing great tables, as the name suggests. And so, but then all of a sudden, I got a message from our friend Marco Gorelli, and he was like, "I'm going to change the plotting backend of Polars," and so he decided to rip out hvplot and to replace that with Altair. So. And I was like, oh, man, now I got to rewrite this big portion of the chapter just because of this. And I mean, eventually, again, I started to realize that Marco had made the right decision, right? Because Altair has some very good advantages. It's very suitable for when you're doing exploratory data analysis, right? It allows you to create these interactive visualizations in the web. It's so it's all good, but that chapter that was haunting me for months in order to complete it, and now it's all good. And Marco and we're all friends again. So it's all good. It's all good.
Well, yeah, but I'm guessing for the library, he's not going to sit there and say, "Well, gosh, they're writing this book. I guess I'm not going to make it." Product any better.
Yeah. So, no, definitely.
That's always been the case. Like that's
at least
always
until their book comes out, then I'm just gonna screw them because like it'll be out of date.
Yeah.
And, so
it's like push an update the date after the book is released. Everything's different now.
Yeah. No, I mean there's bound to be a second edition of the book because this is changing so fast.
Yeah, but I think it also this led us to look more at which parts are stable and unstable, because one of the things that Polars has supported from pretty early on is a streaming engine, which the idea is that you can work on data sets that are larger than your RAM. You can still process it properly; it just goes through in batches. But it's always been marked as unstable. So in the beginning, we were like, are we gonna add this or not? And that's one of the things we decided to postpone for now because it was unstable. So let's just do that at the end. And then by that time, we'll have more info on whether they keep building on it or whether it becomes stable in the meanwhile. And luckily we didn't, because by now they're working on a completely new revamped streaming engine, which is not out yet and will be coming out somewhere in half a year or so. And that's something that another edition will definitely contain. But by that time, it's stable. The features have been added that it needs, and then it's safe to write about.
That's interesting, though, because this is the challenge of technical books like this, where you have lots of code examples, is almost the moment you write it, updates happen or major revisions. And what's your test for in terms of deciding what to include in the book that probably won't go out of date as quickly?
I think that the main things we started with have always been just the main concepts that will never change. Like just selecting rows from a data frame is not something that's suddenly going to change, or the joining data sets together. That's like those core concepts of a data frame library they won't change. So that's what we started with. And then we just built towards like the API of Polars, which is built on expressions. That's something that ultimately led to 3 separate chapters, because there are just so many things to tell about that. And within that, there's always, you risk writing about some things that might be subject to change, but even it still makes sense to explain what's going on, because it's just how Polars works and what like the principles underneath are. So that's something that's always safe to write about. And then later, as you go on, you start touching on subjects that are a bit on the edge until you hit the unstable things where you notice, okay, if I write about this, then it might just be different in a month, and that's not something you can put in a book.
How did you get enough insight into Polars to know what parts were going to be probably fairly immutable and unchanging versus things that might be a bit more temporal?
Yeah, so they, and by they I mean the Polars development team, they marked each function as stable or unstable. So it should be no surprise that the data visualization part was unstable. I should have known better. I was just too eager to
Icarus.
start writing about this.
That and just hopping by. So the Polars guys have their HQ in Amsterdam, and we both worked there at the time with Xomnia. So I think we had especially towards the end of the book when we were wrapping things up and we needed some more information on the stuff we couldn't write just by ourselves, like we needed a bit more info. We went over to the Polars HQ and just had a chat with Richie or other guys at the team. Just talk to them like, hey, we're running into this stuff, or we wanted to create a proper clear-cut definition for this. I think even at one point, Xomnia had a company outing where Richie was also joining, and on a bus somewhere.
Somewhere in Jordan.
Yeah.
A very long bus ride.
Yeah, that was Xomnia was celebrating their 10 years of existence. So they had this insane trip to Jordan, where in the middle of the desert, where like the same desert where you have movies like Dune and The Martian that are in Star Wars that have been recorded there. We were just driving along with the bus, and we were seated behind Richie, so he couldn't escape us.
What a coincidence.
Yes.
Yeah.
It felt like we planned that. We were just sitting behind him, and we just had the time to discuss all kinds of things. And like one of the things that at the time Jeroen was working on is creating a proper definition for an expression. Yep. And that's something that Jeroen was just discussing with Richie for like an hour about all the different cases, what it would turn out. Yeah,
I think it's rare you get that level of access, especially if you're. Yeah, it's one thing if you're like Wes McKinney. He wrote the book on pandas, right? So it's like,
of course,
he would know about pandas, I would hope, and know how to write about it. But coming in, it's got to be
even more so. I spoke to Wes about this, and actually, as he was writing the book, he started to notice gaps in the code base or opportunities to make it more complete. So the book, you could say, formed the package as well. So
Smart.
it was a very nice symbiotic relationship going on there. We had that to some extent,
I was
right?
gonna ask
Whenever
if
there
you had
was a
some.
bug.
Yeah. Was there anything you
Yeah.
noticed in Polars where you went back to Richie and team where you're like, actually,
Yep.
it would be cooler if you could do it this way?
Yes.
I think some
Okay.
discussions about naming, but also there was like some bitwise operators where one of the operators was kind of missing or the naming was different. And you just like as you go over practically all of the methods that are in there, you start finding these things that don't quite match up with the rest. Like that that there's one function that is named in a slight different pattern than the others, and you can just notify them and like, okay, and they'll start thinking about how much will this break, and we put this in the next major release, for example.
Yeah.
So that's fun discussions to have.
But those are obvious, like those are obvious mistakes or should be fixed or can be easily added. But something else is, for example, I'm still not happy with the method with columns, right? It comes from Spark. And, if you look at all the other major methods that you can, that a data frame exposes, select and filter and sort and join
Bye.
and group by, these are all verbs, right? With columns, it's not. So I told Richie, like, hey, wouldn't it make more sense to change that into a verb, right? We have Pandas has the assign method in R or in dplyr. You have the mutate verb, right? So to make things more consistent, but Richie has a very clear vision, and he's not always easily convinced.
Jeroen's campaign is running to this day to try and change that.
Yeah, maybe in Polars 2.0. I don't think so. It's never going to happen. I'll write a plugin for it. So
just to rename it.
Yeah, I mean, but it's these little things, and of course, it really helps if you have someone that really has a clear vision and don't just they don't sail with every wind that's coming at them.
Would you
But
call that extension like with verbs or something? Just to
with verbs, exactly. Yeah.
um,
This
yeah.
summer.
Then it would actually
Yeah.
break the rule that you were trying to impose.
Yeah, which makes it even better. Right?
Yeah.
That'd be pretty hilarious, actually. Just do it on April Fools.
Yeah.
Or just with select, with filter, with just do it exactly the other way around.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll make that one.
Yeah. But and there's been some other things also because I have I've been using R and the tidyverse for a long time, and that ecosystem is just so well designed. It is all these. I don't know. Are you an R person?
I love R
a
lot. Yeah, like I always think of it like a really good hand calculator for stats. Like it just works out of the box. If I need to do something in statistics, I actually reach for R first because everything's there. So
right.
Yep.
Yeah. And so you get spoiled if you're used to the tidyverse and the design principles behind those packages and the functions that they expose. You get used to a certain way of thinking, and then that spoils you, and you take that with you as you try out other things, and that's not always helpful. So in a similar way that a lot of pandas users will have to unlearn certain concepts when they come in touch with polars.
Yeah, like the index,
not using any brackets, for example.
And by index, you're referring to, just for the audience here, not a database index, but the index of the column or the row.
So that's the under the hood aspect of the order of rows in the data frame in pandas.
Yeah. Although I believe it conceptually does come from a database index. But anyway, it's always this extra column that you have, but it's not treated as a regular column.
Yeah.
That's basically it. Yeah.
Yeah. Who's it? Devin? Do you know Devin Peterson? He wrote I think he did Modin.
No, we don't.
But anyway, yeah, he had this really good paper on data frames. I think it was his PhD thesis. You should go check it out sometime. It was,
that sounded
probably the best paper or best thing I've ever read on data frames ever. goes into the relational algebra of data frames. I know.
It's a lot of credit. I'll have to read it.
Ladies,
And so,
just stay back. I know. It's
so
just,
what does he have to say about the index?
what's that? Well, I said
Do you
that's one of the things
remember?
that makes a data frame a data frame is that you have a row-wise index for one thing, right? Which a typical database table doesn't have. There's no notion of that. So we kind of went through like some of the differences of, in relational algebra, some of the differences between data frames and traditional database tables, for example, right? And the big one is obviously the indexes as they apply to data frames. The other one was a transpose operator, because in a database you can't do a transpose. It just doesn't easily work that way for a lot of reasons. So that was so we kind of went through it. Yeah, it's worth checking out if you haven't. I'll send you the link on it. But it's but anyway.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that polars. I've never used polars. I just haven't had a need to. Maybe I should. Now that I have a book, I can go through it and become a.
You definitely should.
Useful
You
in it.
definitely should.
Yeah.
We can highly recommend it.
Definitely.
I heard it's a good book.
And the book as well, of course.
And the book.
Yeah, the authors are okay. But yeah, the book.
They're good looking. That's
You mentioned Amsterdam, and Polars is there. DuckDB is also there, and it feels like
Yes.
I think it's in ClickHouse out of there too, or they have an office there as well. But
It could be. I'm not sure.
I don't know. Anyway,
But,
there's a bit of
DuckDB and
data
Portland
companies.
for sure.
Yeah. No, I just realized there's quite a few data
it's
nerds.
where Python was invented.
That's true. Yeah.
Yeah. They have a movie coming out soon.
Yeah, I saw that documentary on the Python thing. Right?
Yeah. This summer. They even made a trailer for it. There's a movie about Python.
In a world where one man can make a difference.
Yeah. Guido van Rossum certainly did. Yeah.
Is Guido in the movie, or is there somebody who plays Guido?
Yeah. He
Okay.
appeared in the trailer.
Nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd actually be more funny
Put it
if
in
they
the
just
show
had an
notes.
actor play Guido.
It's just like Brad Pitt as well. Like,
Least. Yeah.
This needs to happen. Well, now you can just use AI and make the movie.
exactly.
The trailer a bit different. Yeah, it's yeah. What is it about what is it about the Netherlands? 'Cause it feels like there's a lot of stuff going on in tech and data. Like I was there last fall. I spoke at ASML. Yeah. So tiny company, they're a startup.
Yeah.
They make these printers, right?
What's that?
They make these printers, right?
Yeah, they make printers. Yeah, pretty fancy printers. But I did notice that it was definitely a pretty big contingent of really competent data people, and I've known this when I've met other people from the Netherlands. Is there anything about your education system or your
Something in the water?
that
Yeah. I don't know. It's certainly not the BC climate over here.
No. Do you think it's just like we want to squeeze every value we have from every penny? So every company that has some data lying around wants to do something with it?
Squeezing, that sounds about right. The Dutch are known to be cheap. So, yeah. So, that makes sense. I don't know. And as for education, well, yeah, let's not make this political. It's, yeah, I don't know. I don't really know what it is. It's, right. It's like, when you're a fish, you don't know that you're in water.
Yeah, maybe that's it.
It's like, yeah, I know.
Yeah. I don't know. So that's up.
It's
I guess you could say the same about America. I'm here, and but I don't really notice like why why Silicon Valley is here, for example. It's here because I guess it's here, right? So, but
certainly better BC climate, right?
Yeah.
There's the Dutch are also very risk averse. Yeah, so that's why
it's more despite than because of the VC climate.
Yeah,
these companies are here.
Yeah, exactly. So there's not a whole bunch of funding, to go around.
I don't think it's for lack of demand, though. If you're at a certain point, I know like DuckDB. I mean, the labs. I'm guessing they fielding a lot of VC calls. But there's a certain element of control that you give up too if you take the VC money, and that's I think
definitely
to be appreciated.
Although DuckDB does come out of or is the result of a lot of research,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it comes more from the academic angle.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
that indeed is
And
different.
polars, it seemed like that was more of a commercial, kind of almost a side project from what you're describing that just became
Yeah, it's more a
big.
passion project from Richie. It's just like
Yeah.
it was born from his frustrations with the existing landscape. I think he just started with writing Rust, and he noticed that there wasn't something to join to CSVs yet in Rust, so that's what just started his whole project. And
That's
like
funny.
he described it one time as that he just started with his join, and it was slower than pandas was on one core in Python, while Rust is supposed to be this very multi-threaded fast way. So that's kind of got him. That frustration kept him going to keep optimizing.
That's so.
So
That's
I
actually
think,
really
and that's
funny when
just
you think
something.
about it, because most people would just say that's annoying. Oh well.
I'm
And
gonna
I'll
use
do it
then
all at
pandas.
the end of the day and chill. Yeah.
yeah,
Or
because when
I'll
Wes
use
did
pandas and
pandas, it was the same thing. When Wes McKinney was working as a quant, and then he
yeah.
and he's like, spreadsheets kind of suck. What if we could just do spreadsheets in Python? And then that's
Yeah.
pandas.
Yeah.
So
Quit his PhD and decided to eat noodles for a whole year so that he could focus all his time and money on this project that became pandas.
yeah, it's crazy, right?
It
But
is
in
amazing.
retrospect, that was a good move. It helped humanity, So
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, you could say that. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
I mean, it definitely took it from a different place. I think the only other data frame you had S at the time, and then I think R as well. But R
That's
was sort
great.
of relegated to like this other area of stat nerds and stuff, and so
Yeah, but that is where Wes got his inspiration from.
yeah.
Like R has a native data frame implementation,
Hmm.
and I was like, hey, there is none in Python.
Hmm.
I'm gonna build it.
Yeah, Rust
Yeah.
wasn't really a thing then, so yeah.
Nope.
And only recently you celebrated its 10th birthday, right? A couple of weeks ago.
Rust did?
10th birthday.
Yeah.
Oh, Rust.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Oh, it's that young?
It's been around for a while, but it's like
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things, it's a very young language.
Yeah.
Where do you see the ecosystem going with respect to Rust? Do you think um, more activity is going to happen in Rust?
I think the realization set in that the performance is a feature, and that more performance critical components are being written in Rust. And at least with some of the libraries like Polars that we see, is that Python kind of becomes this scripty glue language that under the hood sports Rust engines and every Rust execution which has the performance. And we see this even with the tooling for Python, like UV by Charlie Marsh's Astro company.
Mm-hmm.
They're also working they've got Rough, they've got Thai soon. It's coming out like a type checker, and that's all Rust based as well. So even the tooling for Python is being written in Rust because it's so fast.
Yeah.
So it's I feel like it's moving towards this polyglot thing where you have Python to quickly get your application together and get it running, and then you can apply Rust for the more performance critical components.
And even beyond Python, they started rewriting all the GNU core utils, right? Like paste and sed and awk. They started to re-implement them in Rust, and now Ubuntu has even decided to use all those Rust implementations instead as a default.
Yeah.
That's quite something.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just Googling to see what was happening in JavaScript, if the same sort of trend is happening over in that one, because I think JavaScript and Python suffer from a lot of the same sorts of issues where they're easy to script in, but the language itself, it's not. Pythonese will hate me for saying this, but whatever. I mean, it's not that performant. So, like Python
It's
had the
just
GIL for a
because
long time. I think they just finally started like making it so you could kind of bypass the GIL, and then multi-threading, like because of the GIL, was not really a thing in Python. So not in the way that you could do it in other languages. So
I kind of feel like because you have so much freedom and like dynamic typing and stuff like that, it lacks a lot of the optimizations that you might have in a more compiled language. And
yeah,
one of the things I like about Python is you can just open like Jupyter or REPL, and you can just start throwing Python in it, and it just responds instantly. which gives you a lot of freedom because that way you can iterate, especially with data analysis. Like you can just keep iterating on a problem and just creating some new outputs, some new visualizations. And as you learn more, you can keep going, which would be harder in a compiled language. So it kind of both has their pros and cons.
Yeah. I don't see Rust being used for exploratory data analysis.
No, having to compile every query and then like kind of debugging and printing, there may be more interactive ways of working with it, but I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, and I think the syntax too. It's more kind of like traditional programming languages. Like it borrows a lot from C and stuff. Because I tried learning Rust a few times, and I'm just like, I don't know. It's fun, but I have other things to do, I guess. I don't really have anything to apply it to right now, right? That's the other thing.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, like if there's not a use case, then I'll just go learn. I'll go on Duolingo and learn Spanish or something. Just kidding.
I'm curious when Duolingo comes out with a Rust course.
Oh, that'd be funny. Well, they do. I think they were coming out with some programming courses, if I'm not mistaken. But I wanted to get.
I know it's about math and music, and so they're getting creative for sure.
Oh, you guys use Duolingo?
So my girlfriend mostly uses it. She's on a 1,200 plus days streak. It's insane. I would never have the discipline for doing that. And I occasionally dabble in it, but it's just fun to go through all the languages I think they added like, what's the Star Trek language again?
Klingon. Yeah, my friend Lisa was learning Klingon.
Exactly. And they had like Game of Thrones also had its own language, which was represented on there. So it's like they keep playing with a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, really useful ones.
Yes, exactly.
That's hilarious. Yeah, me and my kids all do Duolingo, so they always I don't know, ask me my streak score because they want to one up their dad. But I'm currently learning German, so
right.
Yeah,
and they're not afraid of owls just yet.
The green owl just lurking in the background.
No. In fact, yeah.
Going to get you if you don't.
Yeah, if you don't come back, they do gamify it though. I think in pretty scary ways because it is like there's a reason that your girlfriend's on her 1000th day because that's by design. The owl comes out and says, "Yeah, it'd be great if you can come back and finish your lesson because otherwise we're going to kidnap your family." So
it kind of feels like
that. That's all you need. It's fine.
So my girlfriend's learning Dutch, and she finished the Dutch course. And at one point, she's at the end, you're in this loop of the repetitive, like the same sentences that keep coming and coming.
You finished it?
Yeah, she finished it.
Oh,
you can finish a language. It's also something I would never learn because I'm just way too distracted too early. But she finished it, and then she just swapped to other stuff. Like now she's doing math. And you can get like all these. It's kind of like this to develop an intuition about numbers. So do quick multiplication, quick division, stuff like that.
That's cool.
It's pretty fun to see.
Cool. I'll remember that next time I talk to her. She can actually talk.
What's her native language?
So she's from Poland. So our relationship, because my Polish is a tough language. It's still something I tried to crack with Duolingo, but their grammar is intense to say the least. So I just need to properly sit down for it and go through that once, and then keep using it, kind of not let it rust away. But her Dutch is a lot better than my Polish for sure. But we just converse in English.
Too much fun. You guys got any plans over the summer and fall?
Plans. I'm going to Legoland soon in Denmark.
Go to what?
In Denmark.
Okay.
The original Legoland in Denmark. Yeah. What else? And France.
Cool.
Camping. Yep.
Right.
That's nothing too special.
Now, very, very short term for I think both of us is going to PyData in London.
Oh yeah.
And for me, later in the summer, I'm headed to Japan, but it's just like slightly after, like more August-ish, because otherwise it's way too hot in there.
Yeah. Any
How about
plans
yourself?
for a course based on your book or any materials?
We are working on a course. It's not finished yet.
Yeah,
but it's we're working on
finding the right balance of cooling off from 2 years of writing a book on the same content, but also trying to see, okay, so what's next? So that's kind of the period that we're in right now.
Yeah, it's a hard balance. I think I need to be better at that. Once my book was printed, it took a few weeks, and I started thinking about what was the next one to write.
Book tour. I feel you visited about every conference that was remotely related to data engineering. At least
That
that's
also
what
happened.
LinkedIn. Yeah, that was a year. I mean, LinkedIn. It was all over LinkedIn. You were
Still,
doing a lot.
still am. Yeah, I think this. Yeah, I mean the schedule. I didn't want to travel as much this year, but certain I don't know things happen, I guess. So
Mm-hmm.
like I was literally just in London last week, and yeah, so travel a bit. And then what next week is Snowflake Summit, and then the week after that's Databricks. I'll be at that. Then going to Iceland, Global Data Summit. So yeah, I mean those opportunities could be there, but I think for you guys, like you could definitely hit the conference circuit if you wanted to, but it depends on what your goals are. For me, I like to get out and just interact with practitioners and kind of get a pulse on what's happening in the world. And you can sit there and read about it all day on social media, but it's there's a lot of things you miss. And I don't think you get the full picture. But for
It's true.
me, the ways that I do it is because obviously it's a great way to connect with people, but also to get ideas, in terms of where is the industry going, what are people doing, what are they not doing, right? Like I think that's a lot of the motivation for it.
Yeah,
Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of conferences, there's a lot of stuff going on, but I don't know, you got to pick your battles, I guess. So
that's true. That's
Can't hit
true.
them all.
Yeah,
There's so many.
yeah,
we
but
should
then if you're doing
compare.
courses, right? Like I think taking the time to put a lot of effort into a great course, like I think that's time well spent, that you guys are probably doing. Um, but that's but I always felt like you should do the book first and then do the course, not the other way around, because it's because I think if you do the book, then you've thought through every angle of the topic that you're going to be giving a course on, and so it
Yep.
makes you a better instructor. Versus if you like did a course and then wrote a book, it's like you kind of don't really know as much as you probably should about the topic.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but I'm pretty sure you
That's
guys felt like when you finished the book, like with polars, like you probably know a bit about polars now, since you wrote about it. So,
yeah.
The imposter syndrome is real sometimes, and you still like some people. The way they're able to apply Polars is insane, especially like the Polars as a Discord server. And there's a couple of people that are really active on there to help people out that just come in with questions like, "Hey, I'm stuck in this situation. I'm trying to achieve this, but I don't quite know how." And there's a couple of guys that feel like magicians, that they just grab exactly the right expressions and weave it together in exactly what you need. And then even I'm surprised, like, oh, that's actually a very neat way to do it sometimes.
cool.
But it turns out that the moment you get going, it turns out if you write a book about it, then you also kind of get to know a lot about it.
Yeah.
Sure.
And, on top of that, because we were able to put polars into production, that's how we learned a lot of things too.
Yeah.
Because again, it's one thing to write about it or to read about it, than to actually put it to use.
Yeah.
There's, there are a lot of things. And you're right, Joe, when you write with a W, then that's when you start noticing gaps in your knowledge.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Well, writing is thinking, right? So it's
Yeah, like
I
it
think
kind of
there's
forces you to think something through and structure your thoughts and to get it on paper. Helps a lot.
oh yeah, like I tell people there's no better way to master a subject than to go write about it. There
Yeah.
isn't. I mean, so you could do all the YouTube videos you want in the world, and it still wouldn't. I don't think. Yeah, you could do YouTube on polars all day, and it still wouldn't. I think you guys would probably be better off just writing the book. So, and
Yeah.
you guys gonna write another book?
Like I said, I mean, it is. There's going to be a second edition at some point. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I don't think it's going to be for another year. You have to balance these things, and I'm not sure if my wife would agree if I were to write any other book sooner than that. So I don't know how it is, but for you, but I don't know. At some point, if I were to write another one, it's definitely going to be a more conceptual one. Uh, mm, so more higher level ideas, but I'll first try to get some of those ideas, and then
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think for me it was mostly just as long as I can attach myself to the subject and be passionate about it, then it doesn't feel like a punishment to work on it. So it's like the curiosity just comes by itself, and you want to dive into the topic and you want to know how it works. So that's the most important thing. Like if I ever run into another subject like that, it's definitely something I'm willing to write about.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I think you guys will do another one at some point, so you're not totally frightened. Maybe your spouses are. Who knows?
Yeah.
But, yeah. Anyway,
How about
good
you?
luck.
How about you? You're
I'm writing one right now. I'm actually finishing. I wouldn't say finishing, but about this summer I'll be done with it. So it's a book on data modeling. So
oh wow.
all things data modeling.
With
So like data modeling for applications, analytics, machine learning, kind of everything in between. Like I was just outlining a whole section on modeling for spreadsheets, actually. Like spreadsheet data. There's going to be a data frame modeling section. Like how do you model data for spreadsheet or data frame? Because it's like the traditional approach to in the coverage of data modeling. I think it's great, but like it's mostly just on databases. Tell me how many other systems are used out there right now. How many forms of data we have, like images,
yeah.
audio, all this stuff, text, data frames, right? All these things don't fit neatly into the ways that data modeling is taught. And yet in streaming, right? Everything, right? We just, I just published a few chapters on event data. Like, how do you think about events? Like, they're immutable. They are different than things. So it's just like this. So that's the book I've been working on. But it was funny because after Fundamentals of Data Engineering, there's a whole chapter on data modeling and transformations. And I was like, I think that needs to be the next book I work on, because I don't think that if I looked at a lot of the root causes that I see with data teams, for example, right? The issues they run into, a lot of it's because the underlying data model sucks. Whether it's from the app or their own data warehouse or lakehouse or whatever. So it's like that. We need to focus on that. So it would have been done by now, but I had some other projects come up. So courses and
classic. Yeah. Is it with a publisher again?
I'm doing it myself. I started a publishing company.
Nice.
So,
oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow, that's huge.
Why not just do it yourself? Yeah. So.
Yeah.
Well, I think I realized that.
Yeah, I mean, there are pros and cons, but what was your?
Sure. I mean, I think for your first book, I don't regret doing my first book with our publisher. I think they did a great job, but I felt like, the situation is you're going to do most of the work. They're going to take most of the money. So, but you get a lot of support. But I felt like for the second, and future ones, I'll just, I think I have a pretty good idea of what I'm doing. So consider it. It's,
I think it also has a little bit to do with the personal branding you build, right? Like, because in the beginning, you're just some guy that wrote a book. If you self-publish that, it's harder to get that out as an authority.
Sure. Yeah.
And then if you can attach that to a publisher that already has a name in the scene, then that can help a lot. Like you can use the platform, you get the reach. But at one point, if
you're going to self-publish, I would say definitely have a name already there. It's just otherwise, it's like, cool, you got a book. You know how many books are published each year? Like, I think like 1 million or something like that. I don't know, but there's a lot.
Yeah, that can be tough.
And with AI, it's like Amazon has this rule where you can publish no more than 3 books a day.
Oh,
so
okay.
You guys could, that's insane. So just churn them out with AI, but it's kind of what's happening right now. But yeah, I figured, like I have one friend, Nick Singh, he wrote Ace, a Data Science Interview, and that, was over 1,000 ratings, and it does really well. And that's self-published. He only publishes the print edition. He doesn't publish digital.
Right.
But what's interesting with that is it got so popular that for the used copies of the book, people were ordering used and getting like fake books because everyone scams on Amazon. So
yeah, that's horrible. That's horrible.
It's wild.
Yeah. Wow, that's a bestseller right there.
Yeah, it happens. So if you're popular, right, I know that before, because our book was a #1 new release in several categories, like several months before it was supposed to come out. So we're like, it's going to be big. 2 weeks before our book comes out, or maybe it was a week, but there was a Fundamentals of Data Engineering summary book that was on Amazon and Kindle. And we're like, what the fuck is this? Like, because obviously, like,
that's interesting.
The book's not even out yet.
Yeah.
So, and then the titles associated with this particular publisher was summary books of Alex Jones's The Great Reset, and all these like fringe right-wing books, and then ours.
Yeah, that's odd.
I never knew that data engineering was such a right-wing thing. Learned it today.
We're nuts. Yeah. Just chewing tobacco and shooting guns all day. So it's yeah, it's weird, but yeah, that could happen. But yeah, think about it. I think you guys, in the community, you're obviously got some good names right now from your book, so might be an option. But then you just have all the control you want. But the downside is you have a
You'll
publisher breathing
see.
down your neck about deadlines, so you're kind of like, oh, I'll just publish it whenever.
I think at times that actually helped though, to have like, we need to have this chapter finished by the end of the month, because like otherwise nothing, but still you have a deadline, so you have something to work towards. Like, you feel some pressure. I think that definitely helps.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about the name. Our book currently has 3 reviews on Amazon, so we have
a way to go.
We have some way to go. I don't know if you want to write one.
To leave a review for you guys.
We'll have 4.
Much appreciated.
That's greatly appreciated.
Leave a review for Paul. Okay, I got it down.
Yeah, 5 stars.
I'll hold up your PDF and I'll be like, look at this.
Ice cold, 1 star.
Yeah, 1 star.
Thanks, Joe.
Yeah, it was okay. Well, somebody left me a 1-star review once, and it said just a bunch of words. And it's like, oh,
yeah,
that's really helpful. Thanks. Another person wrote a review saying, I think it was a 1 or 2 star. This book is not about data science. It's about data engineering and architecture. And I was like, no shit. Literally says that in the title. Can't believe you wrote this review.
I once got a 2-star review, and all the other reviews by this guy were about sex toys. So
what did you do?
I guess I disappointed him with this book.
That's a weird fetish.
That is not what the command line is for.
No, you'll be surprised.
Now rewritten in Rust for utils.
Oh man, even faster. All right,
guys,
moving
it's
on.
been fun chatting with you.
Yes.
Yeah. So, for people who want to learn more about you or find you, how can they do that?
Oh yeah, I guess the easiest way. We've set up a website for the book, polarsguide.com. And on that website you can get the first chapter for free if you're interested. But it's also easy to find out more about us if you're interested. So from there, from polarsguide.com, you can easily find your way through other resources.
Yeah,
yeah, and we're on the usual socials, on the LinkedIn and X and Blue Sky and whatnot. Not always as active, but we're there.
You're there. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks for the fun chat. Definitely.
Thanks so much for having us
in the Netherlands again. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Joe. Good luck with your book.
Thanks.
Yeah. We'll set a deadline. Don't worry. We'll.
Oh boy. All right. Cool.
You can do this.
Take care, guys. Take care.
All right. Hey, take care. Bye.